The night Ariana Wolk disappeared, nothing seemed out of place. The streets were quiet, the kind of calm that makes you believe the world is exactly as it should be. Her phone last connected to a cell tower just minutes from her apartment, a routine signal that would later become one of the most chilling clues in the entire investigation. At that moment, no one knew that Ariana's life had already entered its final chapter, or that her name would soon be tied to a case defined by silence, deception, and a brutality that left even seasoned investigators shaken. Ariana Wolk was known as dependable, thoughtful, and careful. Friends described her as someone who planned ahead, who didn't vanish without a word, who always replied to messages even if she was busy. That is why the first unanswered text raised concern. Then another, then an entire night passed with no response. By morning, worry had turned into fear. This wasn't like her. Something was wrong. When police first reviewed her last known movements, nothing screamed danger. Security cameras showed Ariana walking alone, her pace unhurried, her posture relaxed. There was no visible struggle, no sign that she sensed what was about to happen. That detail would haunt investigators later, because it suggested that whatever unfolded next happened quickly, unexpectedly, and without giving her a chance to escape. Her apartment was the first place authorities searched. Inside, everything looked normal. No broken furniture, no blood, no obvious signs of a fight. Her keys were missing, her phone was gone, and her car remained parked where she had left it. To detectives, this painted a disturbing picture. Ariana had not planned to disappear. She had simply stepped out and never come back. As hours turned into days, the case gained urgency. Missing person flyers spread across the city, her face appearing on screens and street corners. Friends retraced her final steps, replaying every conversation, every detail that might now carry hidden meaning. Did she sound worried? Did she mention meeting someone? Did she seem distracted? Each memory was examined and re-examined, searching for a clue that could explain the impossible. Investigators began analyzing digital evidence. Her phone records showed no frantic calls, no messages asking for help. Her social media activity stopped abruptly, mid-conversation. To detectives, this silence was louder than any scream. It suggested control. Either someone had taken her phone or Ariana had been prevented from using it. Both possibilities pointed toward foul play. Then came the first unsettling discovery. A witness reported seeing someone matching Ariana's description near a location she had no reason to visit. The sighting was brief, uncertain, but it opened a new line of inquiry. Why would she be there? Who could have convinced her to go? Or was she forced? These questions shifted the case from a missing person investigation to something far darker. Search teams combed nearby areas, focusing on places hidden from view, abandoned lots, wooded paths, isolated structures. Each search ended the same way. No Ariana, no answers. The lack of physical evidence frustrated authorities and deepened the fear that time was running out. In cases like this, every hour mattered, and with each passing day, hope became harder to hold on to. Behind the scenes, detectives began building a timeline, minute by minute. They looked at who last spoke to Ariana, who knew her routines, who might have had access to her. Patterns started to emerge, subtle at first, then increasingly troubling. There were inconsistencies in certain statements, small contradictions that might mean nothing or everything. Investigators knew that in the most brutal cases, the truth often hides behind ordinary faces and everyday lies. Then, the case took a devastating turn. During a targeted search based on newly analyzed data, authorities found something they had been dreading. What they discovered confirmed the worst fears of everyone involved. Ariana Wolk was no longer a missing person. She was a victim of homicide. The condition in which she was found revealed a level of violence that shocked even experienced investigators. This was not a crime driven by panic or impulse alone. The injuries told a story of intent, of rage, and of a complete disregard for human life. Every detail was documented carefully, each mark becoming a silent witness to what Ariana had endured in her final moments. Forensic teams worked meticulously, knowing that Ariana herself could no longer speak. Fibers, traces, and microscopic evidence were collected, each one a potential key to identifying who had done this. The brutality of the act suggested familiarity, someone who knew her movements, her vulnerabilities, her trust. This was not random, this was personal. As news of her death became public, shock turned into anger. People wanted answers. How could someone vanish so easily? How could such violence go unnoticed? The community demanded justice, and the pressure on investigators intensified. Every lead was pursued, every possibility explored, no matter how uncomfortable it became. Detectives now faced the most difficult task of all, uncovering the truth behind Ariana Wolk's final hours. Who was with her? What happened after she left that quiet street? And most haunting of all, why? The answers were there, buried beneath layers of deception and fear, waiting to be exposed. What investigators would uncover next would not only reveal the identity of a killer, but also expose a disturbing chain of events that showed how close evil can hide, how easily trust can be exploited, and how one ordinary night can end in unimaginable horror. As investigators pushed deeper into Ariana Wolk's life, they began focusing on the days leading up to her disappearance. On the surface, nothing appeared unusual. Ariana had gone to work, spoken with friends, and followed her normal routine. But detectives knew that the most critical details in homicide cases are often the ones that seem insignificant at first. A casual conversation, a brief meeting, or a moment of misplaced trust can become the thinning point between life and death. One name began to surface repeatedly during interviews. It was someone Ariana knew, someone who had been part of her regular environment. This person had access to her time, her trust, and most importantly, her sense of safety. At first, there was nothing overtly suspicious. Their story sounded cooperative, even concerned. But as detectives compared timelines, subtle gaps started to appear. Phone data revealed that this individual's movements closely overlapped with Ariana's on the night she vanished. Cell tower pings placed them in the same general area at the same critical window of time. When questioned, the explanations didn't fully align with the digital evidence. Investigators didn't confront them immediately. Instead, they waited, allowing the pressure of the investigation to slowly close in. Meanwhile, forensic analysis began producing results. Fibers found on Ariana's clothing matched materials from a location investigators had recently searched, based on digital clues. It was a place Ariana had no reason to visit on her own. This discovery suggested that she had been taken there against her will or lured under false pretenses. Either way, it confirmed that someone had deliberately isolated her. Autopsy findings painted a devastating picture of Ariana's final moments. The injuries indicated a violent struggle, suggesting she fought desperately to survive. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't a moment of uncontrolled panic. It was a sustained act of brutality. For investigators, this reinforced their belief that the crime involved someone who felt a sense of control, someone who believed they could get away with it. As detectives revisited earlier interviews, they noticed changes in tone. The same person who had once spoken calmly now appeared nervous, defensive. Small details shifted. Times changed. Locations were adjusted. To trained investigators, these inconsistencies were red flags. Truth doesn't change. Lies do. Surveillance footage from nearby roads added another critical layer. A vehicle connected to the prime person of interest was captured, traveling a route that aligned with the estimated time of Ariana's death. The footage wasn't clear enough to show what was inside the vehicle, but combined with cell data and forensic evidence, it tightened the net. The case was no longer built on suspicion alone. It was built on fact. When confronted with this growing body of evidence, the pressure became overwhelming. During a lengthy interrogation, investigators carefully presented each contradiction, each verified detail. They didn't accuse. They let silence do the work. And eventually that silence broke. The confession did not come all at once. It came in fragments. First, an admission of being with Ariana that night. Then an acknowledgement of an argument. Finally, the truth emerged in full. A chilling account of how a situation escalated into violence, how control turned into rage, and how Ariana's life was taken in a moment that could never be undone. According to the confession, Ariana had trusted the wrong person. What began as a seemingly ordinary interaction spiraled into terror. She tried to escape. She tried to reason. But the person she relied on chose violence instead. Afterward, efforts were made to hide the crime, to erase evidence, and to continue life as if nothing had happened. But as history has proven time and again, the truth leaves traces that cannot be completely concealed. The arrest brought a mixture of relief and heartbreak. Ariana's family finally had answers, but those answers came at an unbearable cost. In court, prosecutors laid out the evidence step by step, transforming raw data into a clear narrative of guilt. Digital records, forensic findings, surveillance footage, and the confession itself formed an unbreakable chain. The defense attempted to introduce doubt, suggesting emotional instability and poor judgment rather than intent. But the severity of the injuries, the efforts to conceal the crime, and the inconsistencies in early statements told a different story. This was not a tragic accident. It was a deliberate act, followed by calculated decisions. When the verdict was delivered, the courtroom fell silent. Justice in its legal form had been served, but no sentence could restore Ariana's life or erase the pain left behind. Her absence echoed in every statement from loved ones who described her kindness, her plans for the future, and the life that was stolen from her. The murder of Ariana Wolk serves as a haunting reminder of how vulnerability can be exploited, and how danger doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes it comes from those we believe we know. This case exposed the fragile line between trust and betrayal, and how quickly that line can be crossed with irreversible consequences. Today, Ariana is remembered not for how she died, but for who she was before violence defined her story. Her name lives on as a symbol of why truth matters, why justice must be pursued relentlessly, and why silence can never be allowed to protect brutality. Her story forces us to confront an uncomfortable reality. Evil does not always announce itself. Sometimes it walks quietly beside us, waiting for the moment we least expect. And when that moment comes, the impact can be devastating, leaving behind questions, grief, and a truth that will never be forgotten.